and aesthetics, laser skincare, awesome. Oh, and private label skincare. Our founder, Casey, started a skincare brand many years back and sold that. So that's awesome. Well, exciting. We're going to get into it. So, we're going to talk about wellness practice ownership, particularly focused on weight loss, hormones, longevity, but we'll see some other ways that that can kind of look or play out, and other specialties that might be kind of lumped into that. Um, I'm Kathryn Werner. I am the senior consultant with CPAC on practice ownership. I own a telepsychiatry practice, and over the last several years have helped numerous PAs, nurse practitioners start and grow their own practices. And we'll get into that a little bit more in our presentation. So at CPAC, our mission is to make practice ownership simple, achievable, and sustainable for PAs and nurse practitioners. We do work with physicians as well, but really we're a team of PAs, as you can see. So that's really where our love and our passion and our focus is. So Casey D'Amato is our founder. She started CPAC many years ago. She's been a serial entrepreneur. Like I said, she started a skincare line, has ventures in real estate, but has been a practicing PA in dermatology. Also, Katie Plessinger normally is the one running the show behind the scenes. So she's our community relations director. And many of you I know have had communications with Katie. She's really the front line and the client facing person for CPAC. We've also got Danielle Spatholt, who is our senior consultant for salary and contract negotiations. So if you're employed or a contractor, Danielle can be your point person if you need any help there. And then I'm Kathryn Werner. Like I said, I'm the senior consultant for practice ownership. And since that's what we're talking about today, we'll just get into it. So why practice ownership? Like, why do PAs and nurse practitioners and even physicians think about owning our own practices? Mostly what we hear in talking with hundreds of different PAs and nurse practitioners and physicians is that really a big driver is that they're wanting more control over how you practice and who you serve. We want to be able to practice medicine the way that we feel is best for ourselves and for our patients, not constrained by larger hospital systems or even, smaller clinics where we're employed. Another driver for a lot of owners is that income isn't capped by salary. If you work for someone else, there's always going to be a limit to how much money you can make, even if you're in a really well-paid specialty and have a great, income structure. It's going to be limited because you're one provider billing for the services for your time, usually. My big thing when I started my practice was that I needed a schedule that was going to work around my real life. I had two small kids. My husband was deployed all the time. I needed a schedule that was very flexible for my needs, not around the productivity quotas or the schedule of the office where I was working. A lot of providers also want care that reflects their values, not necessarily corporate policies. We want to be able to spend more time, build deeper relationships, bring in our own spin to medicine and show who we are in a way that our patients really like. We also are very often looking for a career that grows instead of plateaus. For many of us, after several years of practicing medicine, it becomes almost routine. Like there's always new things to learn, but there's becomes almost a monotony to it for some people. And so as a practice owner, you really continue to branch and expand into different areas, whether that's, learning more about systems or finances or marketing or a new type of medicine that you want to incorporate into your practice. You can continue to grow as much as you want as a practice owner. And then it's an asset you own, not just a job that you work. When I'm ready to hang up my hats and retire, I will be able to sell my practice. And that's really exciting. So specifically in 2026, like what are we looking at this year? All states allow some form of PA or nurse practitioner owned practices. Now that definitely looks different state to state, depending on the corporate practice of medicine laws. But there is a path for ownership in every state, which we're really excited about. We're seeing cash pay and hybrid models becoming a lot more mainstream as patients are being exposed to more types of medical care and different structures of practices. Patients are really expecting to self-pay for some of these things. We're also seeing, because of the rising cost of insurances, people switching to high deductible plans, which I would think would make it less likely that they pay out of pocket because we're all wanting to save our pennies. But realistically, people are realizing that with a high deductible plan, they're going to have to pay out of pocket regardless. So that actually for self-pay or hybrid models has been advantageous. Physician collaboration is becoming more accessible than ever. Physicians are catching on that this is a good gig, and many of them want to be participants in our care, whether that's because they want to expand their reach or they like that easy income. Either way, it's word is getting out that this is a good thing, and also because of virtual medicine and all of our electronic platforms and states catching up, it's becoming easier for that to be the case. There's also a rising demand for specialty, functional, and longevity medicine as our consumers are becoming more educated through social media, AI, word of mouth. They're realizing that this is really something that they're interested in and they want. We also are continuing to see practice ownership and just business ownership in general really has some tax and operational advantages for you, which can be a really nice benefit there. So specifically in the wellness space, what are we looking at? Wellness medicine is one of the fastest growing practice models for PAs and NP ownership in 2026. Really, we're seeing psychiatry and wellness practices and that's not excluding others, but those are our two big areas of practice growth for ownership for PAs and nurse practitioners, which is really exciting. We're specifically seeing medical weight loss with the GLP-1s, tirzepatide, and other peptides. We're seeing hormone replacement therapy. I mean, you cannot go on social media and not see something about hormone replacement therapy. Menopause, perimenopause, testosterone for men's health are all becoming so sought after by patients. So there's really a space for providers to come in and fill that need. People are also becoming more concerned about longevity and prevention optimization. Again, we're seeing social media, we're seeing an aging population, and we're seeing a population where, statistics are that our life expectancy is going to be shorter than our parents. And so we're realizing that. And I think people are really wanting to stay ahead of that, patients. I think providers are just also becoming really excited about the opportunity to prevent disease instead of managing complications. We're also seeing wellness-focused primary care becoming more mainstream and sought after. And then we're seeing sleep, metabolic, bone health kind of being wrapped into that wellness umbrella at this point. And particularly for PA, nurse practitioner-owned practices, these can be really great areas. And again, our public is kind of shifting from, okay, I'm going to go to my primary care and just trust what they're telling me and wait for a referral. Patients are really wanting to seek out their own care so that they can get what they're looking for, have a provider they love, an experience they love. And that can be a really great way for PA nurse practitioner owned practices to stand out and shine. So why do wellness practices thrive? Again, the cash pay hybrid models, and when I talk hybrid models, I mean most cash and a select few insurances instead of just only insurance. So those cash pay and hybrid models really are reducing the insurance burden on the practice, just the credentialing, billing, all of that. And it also kind of, if we can be selective with that, we can really have more control over the reimbursement rates there. We're seeing increasing insurance coverage for particularly the peptides, hormone replacement. And so that can be very helpful as a wellness practice for the financial part of it. There's definitely a high patient demand. I mean, patients really want this care. And there's not as much provider competition. Now, it's definitely growing. I'm not going to, minimize that. But hormone and GLP peptide therapy, there still is a shortage of providers there, and also providers who really know what they're doing, communicate that well, and offer it to patients in a way that they feel good about. There's definitely still a shortage there. We see that the wellness practices, the services that are offered there really align well with the PA nurse practitioner scope and training. It is just a great model for us and a great space for us to fill. And then it's scalable with virtual visits and then concierge models. You can really keep your overhead costs very low if that's what you want to do. And then you can build that out to other providers or other states or other services that really complement maybe your base offering. So there's a lot of ways to grow and thrive in the wellness space, which is really exciting. So, looking specifically at nurse practitioner and PA owned models. So, what's different about this? There's a few things that are different. We have to look for corporate practice of medicine. So, most states have laws about who can and cannot own a medical practice. Many states, the laws are very broad and general and don't prove any real limitations for PAs and nurse practitioners, which is great. Those are wonderful states to be in. There are other states who do have some limitations there and may have some nuances around structures. So that's one thing that we've got to think about. Another thing is just supervision. Like, what does that look like in your state and how is that going to be achieved? The cool thing is there's almost always a solution. Like so far, we have not bumped up into any state where it's just not possible. It's just a matter of how you do it and how you structure it, how long it might take, or what the cost may be. But luckily, we've had experience working with practices in all of these states. So I'm currently operating in Alabama, Idaho, and Florida. But we've also worked, which are relatively easy states, luckily for me, but well, some of them are easier than others, but we've worked with providers in states that are a little bit more challenging, whether that's from an ownership perspective, like California or Texas, or it might be a supervision issue, which is where Alabama gets a little trickier. But again, it's just about getting creative and figuring out what the best way to navigate that is. And so far, luckily, we've been able to, with the help of attorneys, we've been able to manage that even in these more complicated states like California and Texas. So what specialties have we worked with? I mean, realistically, as long as you're doing something that's within your scope of training. So again, we're not going to own practices where we as individual providers are like performing, procedures that we're not going to be doing, open heart surgery tomorrow, even if we own the practice. Now, in theory, you could own the practice and hire somebody else to do that for you. But, when we're looking at the specialties where this really works well, we as an organization have helped providers start practices that serve patients in psychiatry, in primary care, in dermatology, women's health, peds. We'll see some great case studies of those in a minute. We've done longevity medicine, men's health, gender affirming care, hormone therapy. We've had a PA who looped in her lactation consulting training into a peds and women's health practice. We've worked with people who do sleep medicine and lipidology together. So a lot of different options and ways that these practices can look. And that's one of the cool things that I love working with practice owners is just the creativity that I see. Because each PA, nurse practitioner, I think because we all have our own unique journey and many of us have worked in various specialties. So I've done primary care, a brief bout in hepatology, and then like 15 years in psychiatry. And that really informs how I practice medicine. Like I practice medicine probably a little differently than somebody who's only been in psychiatry, right? So I'll start patients on metformins or their GLPs or sometimes even migraine medicines because that's within my training. And so for you as an individual provider, like what is your unique fingerprint and how can we bring that into your practice to best serve your patients? It's been really, really interesting and cool to see how people really make something that's uniquely theirs and then how their patients respond to that and really can, in a lot of instances, feel very seen in that. So what are the steps here to starting a practice? There's a lot of steps, but we can break them up into just a few bigger umbrella things. So we've definitely got to form a compliant business entity. We talked about the corporate practice of medicine. Again, that the rules can be a little different state by state, but we want to make sure that whatever state you're in, you're operating legally. That is important. Some states, we have to do a little bit more work there. We may want to consult an attorney or a compliance specialist. And then in other states, you really just go on a website and pay your money and fill out a form. But we want to make sure that that's done correctly. The second step will be to design a profitable business model. So I got into this, like money was not my driving factor. Like, yes, I wanted some extra income, but it really was, I wanted to practice medicine in my way in a schedule that worked for me. However, it does not matter. Even if you're starting a nonprofit, you still have to have your finances solid. If you don't, you can't keep the doors open and you're not going to be any good to anybody. So it's really important that from the front end, we've got a model that works from a financial perspective, meets your financial needs, and is sustainable and hopefully allows for growth. My goals have very much changed over the years, and now income growth is very much a part of the strategy. We also want to build a repeatable patient acquisition plan. So, where are we getting these patients? How are we getting people into the door? That's a really important part of this. With that, there's all kinds of different things you can do. Again, that can be as unique as you are, but we need to find something that's going to work for speak to your clients, your patients, but also works for you as a provider. We're building this for you and your patients, so it has to work for you as well. I do not love social media. I don't get it. I don't like. It's just not my thing, so I don't do it. I don't need to in my specialty. Now, if you're doing aesthetics, where visuals are going to be really important, social media might be a thing that is necessary, even if you don't love it. But we can find ways to do it that don't drain you. I've relied on, referral marketing because that's much more in my nature as a relational person. So we can really build that in a way that fits for you. Another thing we want to think about is, what are the systems for your daily operations and scalability? How are we going to make this easy? How are we going to make it efficient? How are we going to make it cost effective, so that patients can get scheduled easily, so you can do your work easily and provide that care in a way that makes sense. And then from there, we want to track metrics. We want to see what's working, what's not working, so that we can adjust that strategy and optimize things, whether that's for income, patient acquisition, your stress. We want to make sure that things are really flowing well. Oh, I need an E in that. Dang it. I spelled success wrong. Sorry. So I've talked a little bit about my journey in practice ownership, but just to kind of get into that a little bit more and what that could look like for you. I started my practice, White Pine Mental Health and Wellness, in 2019 because I was working for a company that I didn't particularly love. I had two very small kids and a husband that was, in the military. We were moving, deployments. I needed something that was really going to fit with our lifestyle, because I still needed to practice medicine. Like, that's a part of who I am. I really wanted to be able to practice medicine aligned with my values. One day, the office had pushed my buttons too far, and I was like, I need to do something else. I needed flexibility for my family and my lifestyle, and then income potential that wasn't capped by hours or roles. I was working very part-time and not making much money. How could I do better than that? Also, it's just kind of a little bored with practicing. It's probably 12, 15 years into my career as a PA, just getting a little bored with it. So started the practice, and it really has grown. Now the practice has myself and two other PAs, and we're continuing to expand. We're in 3 states now, which is really exciting. But kind of the result of that, it's made it possible for me to add the other 2 PAs. And we all see patients in a way that feels aligned and sustainable for us. We see the patients we love on a schedule that we love, making the money that we love. Like, it's a good gig. I'm earning more and working less. I spend more time with my family, and I'm building a practice that's an asset that at some point I can sell. So, what are the questions? The questions that we hear most frequently from people who are interested in starting a practice. And we're going to talk about starting and growing practices, because we help with both of those. For people just starting out, they want to know, is this legal, and how? How can we make this work? Yes, it very much is legal for a PA, nurse practitioner to own a practice. It just depends on your state as to what that's going to look like, and we can help you navigate that. How do I find a supervising collaborative physician? Again, I mentioned earlier that physicians are catching on that this is a good gig, and there's a lot of people who want to do this. We keep a list. We've got contacts of agencies. We also can help people set up ads if that's needed, discuss word of mouth. Like, we've got a lot of different strategies for finding a supervising or collaborative physician that's going to meet your needs and be a good fit. So far, that has never, for any of our clients, been a limiting factor, which is really exciting. People ask a lot, should I do cash pay or insurance? That's really going to be highly variable depending on the specialty, your personality, what's going to feel good for you and how fast you want to go and how much energy you want to put into marketing there. And so again, that's something we really work with our clients to determine. Nothing about our programs is one size fits all, because you're not one size fits all. Practice ownership is very different, and that's practice to practice. And that's one of the cool things about it. How do I get patients? Again, we kind of touched on this, that like there's lots of different ways of marketing. And we just need to kind of be very strategic to pick what's going to fit you and what's going to fit your ideal clients. And pick one or two things that fit really well and do them well, instead of picking all the things and doing none of them well and stressing yourself out. And again, we help people design that marketing plan and implement it so that it works well. And then what must be done now to avoid costly mistakes? This one has kind of been the theme of our month in meeting with clients. We've seen a handful of folks who, before meeting with us have made some mistakes that unfortunately are going to cost them quite a bit of time and money. And those are very often things that can be avoided if you know what you're looking for. And we do, which is nice. So what about folks who have already started their practices and are looking to scale or grow? We work with those people too. And the questions they're asking are, am I charging the right amount? How can I make more money? How can I do this better from an income perspective? And we're really good about finding those areas where we can kind of tweak and adjust. One person that we worked with last year, just for some very small changes, increased her revenue by, a magnitude of tens of thousands of dollars in a very short period with very little energy. And so that was really exciting. How do we increase patient volume without burning out? Because again, in our line of work, patient volume is a big deal. But how can we do that without you burning out? What should you do to streamline, automate, or delegate next? As you grow, we've got to make the operations and the systems cleaner and simpler so that that's sustainable. And there's, again, lots of different ways to do that. And it's a really neat little puzzle to figure out. I love this question. Which metrics actually matter? Because there's a million different things you could track, man. You could track your incoming, your outgoing money. You could track your, phone calls, emails, website visits, new patients, counselor visits, or professional referrals. You can track, time to call back, like all these metrics you can track. But if you're tracking all of them, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So we have to make a plan. What's going to be the most important metrics to track? Which ones actually matter? Which ones are going to move the needle in your particular business? And then another question would be, when and how should I grow and scale? I mentioned that I started my practice with absolutely no intention of adding any other providers. Like that was the furthest thing from my mind, 7 years ago. And now I have two other providers, and hopefully we'll add another one or two this year. So again, just things to think about, and that having someone who's had some experience and can just bounce ideas and provide some structure, some accountability and feedback there can be super helpful. So the truth, when we distill all these questions down, the bottom line is that practice ownership is possible and it's proven. We're up to over 30 practices that we've helped launch in the last 2 years. And they're doing well. Like it's a thing that can happen, and it can happen for you. So PAs, nurse practitioners right now are building and scaling real practices that work for them and for their patients. So we'll get into a few of those. Rachel, I mentioned earlier, and worked in pediatrics and family medicine. And in her area, she came initially with this idea that like, hey, when kids are absent from school in her state, they had to have a letter to be able to return. So parents were having to take off, bring their kids into the office just to be able to send them back to school after a brief viral illness. Like it was driving everybody crazy and really costing the families in her community a lot of time, frustration, and even money. And she was like, look, I can do this and I can do it well. And as she kind of started like, hey, well, if I can provide letters for them to go back to school, I can also provide, primary pediatric care. And then she was like, well, but I also love working with the moms that come in and bring their kids. And wouldn't it be cool if we had a practice that served the kids and the moms together? It just makes sense. She also had a background in lactation consulting and pulled that in. Luckily, she was in a very friendly PA state. So we were able to, from like the minute she like decided and committed, like, yes, I'm doing this, to seeing her first patient was 3 months. Now, that is pretty quick. It's not out of the realm of possible by any means, but that was a really wonderful situation. And her initial vision was virtual, but it was working so well that she's added a physical space. She's growing a team, and she seems to be doing it with ease. And it's pretty cool too because I follow her on social media, and she does just some pretty easy lift social media. She doesn't do a ton of crazy stuff, but she has a presence on there. But the feedback from her patients is so cool. Like, man, this is what we need. Rachel's great. Her practice really is serving us well. Like, go to see Rachel. So the word of mouth and the feedback that she's getting has been wonderful. So it's really cool to work with her. Another practice that we worked with is Brittany. She actually had an existing derm and aesthetics practice, but she really was struggling with systems, finances, scaling. Like, it was kind of a side gig at this point, but she wanted to kind of formalize that, and make it a more legitimate business that was operating in a way that was easier for her and earning more revenue. So we worked with her to develop a plan for sustainable growth and scaling that really fit her life and her goals. She wanted to keep her primary job, and still wanted to do this on the side, but wanted it to be in a more structured way that felt better for her and more in control. So we were able to work with her on that, which was pretty cool. So, what are next steps if you decide that like you're wanting to work with us to build a practice? What are the next things to do? We offer, well, two programs. We have one for, well, really three. One though for people who have decided, yes, I want to start a new practice. I'm ready to do that now. That's our practice building blueprint. I've taken everything that I learned. So when I started my practice, I just kept notebooks. There wasn't a blueprint or anything like that. I just had, okay, this is what I need, a list, and anything I came up with, I wrote it down, right? So the name of the lady at the board of medicine that I talked to and the questions I asked, I wrote everything down and I kept them. So when there started to be a lot of people asking me like, hey, how do I start a practice? I'm like, well, let me put that all together for you in a blueprint. So I took everything from my notebooks, and do research yearly to make sure everything's updated and compliant. And we provide that in a structured program. So the practice building blueprint is a 6-month structured support program. You get access to the blueprint, everything put together. The step-by-step guides are really the foundation of the program. It's in 6 modules, and they're written out. It tells you exactly what to do. It has links to all the things and spaces for you to record your notes so that you can just like bing, bang, boom, knock things out really quickly. You don't have to think about what exactly do I need to do, and how do I need to do it. It really lines it out very well for you. With that, though, we also have one-on-one consult with me so that I can get an idea of what you're wanting to do, what your vision is, who you are as a person, so that as we work together in our group program, I have that sense and that understanding of where you're wanting to go. We've got twice monthly group calls where for an hour we meet together with anybody else who's in the program. And it's a really cool time to ask questions, not just of me, but of each other. This time we've got 2 people in the same state and the same specialty who really are able to bounce ideas off of each other. Or, if somebody's been in the program for 4 months and you're just in for, 1 or 2 months, they may have had that experience already and be able to answer your questions or even just provide encouragement. We also use that as a time for like goal setting and accountability. So I always ask, okay, what's the 1 or 2 things that you are working on between now and our next visit? And then I'll check up on it. That also just really helps keep you focused and keep some of that noise and chatter that really can be distracting and slow people down at bay. Really, our goal, our whole goal is to get your practice open in 90 to 120 days. Like 90 is our goal, but we went ahead and did the 126-month so that we have plenty of time there. And this is for PAs, nurse practitioners who really value structure and speed, and then that accountability. There's nothing in this program that is not something you could, I always say, PAs and nurse practitioners, we are trained to learn and do things on our own. Like we are trained to learn things and do things, right? But having that accountability and the community and the support and the structure really can help you get up and running quicker and more efficiently and with less cost a lot of time than if you kind of piecemealed it together like I did back in the day. So again, who's this program for? Practice Building Blueprint is really for clinicians who know that they want to launch a practice and are ready to do it now. It's for people who value structure and accountability. You have a vision, and that doesn't have to be fully solidified, but you have an idea of what you want, but maybe no clear roadmap, or having doubts about like, well, what's the best way to go about this, or questions. It's for PAs, nurse practitioners, even physicians. We do work with physicians as well who want to build their practice with a proven formula. We've done this. Like I said, we're up to, over 30 practices that we've helped in the last 2 years. It works. It's also for anyone who maybe has already started working on this process, but they're feeling a little stressed out or a little less focused or uncertain, or like they're spinning their wheels. We can really help calm that and direct it and make it more efficient. So what all do we cover in the program? It's set up in 6 modules. The first one is goals and visions. There is no sense in building a practice that doesn't work for you. And we get into that very specifically and individually. We want to set it up for you as a person. Our second module is going to be legal and business structure, getting everything set up, creating that foundation. Module 3 is going to be finances and fees. Again, we talked about how, we've got to make this financially feasible. Module 4, we talk about systems and operations. I mean, it goes into figuring out what you need in an EHR and a phone system and how to do the research and which ones we like and why and not and all those things, and how to set it up even. For module 5, we look at branding and marketing. I've got videos that show you how to build your own website, make your own logo, how to do referral marketing, ideas about social media, so that you can come away with those 1 or 2 things that you need to really nail patient acquisition. And then module 6 is going to be sustainability and growth. What metrics do you need to track? Where are you going? And how do you do that in a way that's sustainable for you? All right. So our alumni from the Practice Building Blueprint have reached over 200, or some have reached over 200,000 personal take home within 18 months of opening their practice. That's been really cool. Some have launched with less than $5,000 in startup costs. We've seen people who have filled their schedules within the first 60 to 90 days. A lot of our owners work school-friendly hours so that they can be there for their kids, or we have people that like to travel to see their parents. And they're able to do that while maintaining full profitable practices in those limited and flexible hours. We've seen our alumni go on to hire other PAs, nurse practitioners, or support staff within the first 1 to 2 years. And then we've seen practices that have expanded their services across state lines within months, not years. So again, this is really aimed at accelerating the process for you. So if you are a practice owner, if you've already started and you want to take it to the next level, what have we got there? The Practice Building Accelerator. These are for folks who already have their own practice and just need some help to grow and scale that. So these are people who are beyond the startup phase, like you're actively seeing patients at this point, and you're wanting to scale it sustainably. We, in this program, work with owners who have a really clear vision, maybe need support refining it or executing it. We work with, again, clinicians who really value that strategic guidance, systems, and growth. And we also, sometimes it's not necessarily about practice growth. Sometimes it's about like, gosh, how do I make this feel easier? How do I make it feel more intentional so that I can scale in the future? So in that program, we cover the same areas, but from a different perspective. Like instead of what do I charge, it's how do I maximize that revenue, how to hire and fire, how to scale and grow with ease. We talk a lot again about strategic marketing and adjusting that. We look a lot at time management, energy management probably should be on there too. And we have some guest experts that'll pop in. Casey Tomato will come in and chat with us. We've got a compliance experts, marketing folks, finance folks that will come in and chat with us in PBA. So Denise is going to be our last case study, and she's a really cool example because she started with us with PBB, our practice building blueprint, where we work to grow our practice, and then it's continuing through the accelerator to really grow impressive practice. So she's a psychiatric PA who really came to the program and came to business ownership with a desire for flexibility and income growth. We helped her build that practice where she was able to replace that full-time salary in 1 year. And she's seeing 5 to 12 patients 4 days a week and traveling quite a bit. So a very reduced schedule while making more money than she was working a traditional 40-hour-a-week schedule, which has been great. She moved into the practice building accelerator within a year. And during that time she's been in the PBA, she's increased her revenue substantially. We've made some really big gains there. While simplifying operations, she's hired and managed a virtual assistant. That's kind of her newest thing that's been really neat to see. And is now creating a growth strategy that is structured around compliance in the various states where she sees patients, and then hiring a new provider so that she can continue to grow her income, but also have that a little bit more flexibility in her own personal time. As a practice owner, it's always nice to have somebody else like, hey, I'm going to leave for a month. If you're the solo owner, leaving for a week or two and checking the messages is cool. But if you're going to like legit check out for a month, you need somebody that might be able to kind of be a little bit more available, and that having that in-house is something she's really excited about. So again, kind of circling back to the bottom line and kind of the take home here is that all 50 states at this point do have some path for PA nurse practitioner ownership. Most of our states are actually pretty straightforward and simple. And the ones that have a little bit more nuanced or complicated laws are workable. And we've been able to do that with those. So far, we're seeing 2026 for, again, various reasons, awareness, computer systems, telemedicine, financial situations. So far has been the easiest and best year to become a practice owner or to scale your existing practice. So it's been pretty exciting to see. So if you're interested in starting with one of our programs or even just learning more, you can schedule a discovery call. You can go on and just sign up for our programs directly and then become your own boss with our support. So Katie's the gal. Katie is our community relations specialist, and she is available to answer any questions about, is PBB a good fit for me? Is practice ownership a good fit for me? We offer a practice launch lab, which is a 1 hour for folks maybe considering practice ownership or that have a little bit more questions there. And Katie's happy to jump on a free discovery call to chat with you about kind of what would be your best next steps, any hesitations, questions, answer questions about pricing, schedules, any of that. We've got our website on there, which is cpacteam.com. You can go there and get more information. And then you can email her at team@cpacteam.com. And then her phone number's on there for a reason, y'all. Nowadays, everybody texts. That's the go-to. So Katie is happy to take your text. That's not on there as just in case something else is not. That's a very valid way to get a hold of her, and she's ready for that too. So that's kind of our presentation for today. If I can figure out how to get back to the chat, I will do that. Oh, there we go. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, awesome. So yeah, Florida. Florida's a great state. I operate in Florida. Practice laws are pretty friendly there. Texas, there's definitely a little bit of nuance there, but we do have some providers that we've worked with in Texas. Yeah, IV, longevity, possibly aesthetics. Those are definitely some areas that people, patients are really gravitating towards lately. Price of PBA and the length of the program. Oh, for PBA, it is a monthly fee. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure. The numbers are not numbers, but keeping up with that is not on the top of my to-do list. But Katie's your person. She will be able to give you the most accurate, up-to-date information there. Let me so Eva, I'm sure we've got the recording and Katie will get to it, but I am going to take a note because that's how I operate. Okay, so we've got Eva and Natalie. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure that Katie gets a hold of everybody after our call today, and she'll circle back with you and see if you've got any questions or anything like that. Because we've got just a really exciting, vibrant bunch lately, and we've got some really cool things lined up in the next couple months. And we'd love to see you guys join us in either PBA, where again we can work on all the things with growth and scaling and strategy, and we really do personalize it to what you need that week, that month. And then with PBA or PBB, Practice Building Blueprint, we've got some really cool folks in there too. And are seeing some really great energy and synergy going on there too. So we'd love to have you join us. So that kind of concludes our presentation for today. If you have any follow-up questions, again, feel free to check out our website, email, or text Katie, and then she'll follow up as well. Awesome, y'all. Oh, one more new question. Oh, thank you. You're so welcome. It was a pleasure. I'll look forward to being in touch soon, y'all. Bye.